What's good, America? It's your man, Reggie Florima, a.k.a. Big Flo, along with my man, OG,
What up, buddy?
OG today. What's going on, man?
Not much,
Welcome
man.
back.
I just spent the weekend enjoying a little football. I haven't watched football in a long time, and then watched the Laker game. And I'm in a sports mood, but I'm kind of perturbed about a couple of things with this social justice scene. How now they're trying to bring it into sports, and I just feel like it's hypocritical. But that's a whole other topic in itself. So
that's the whole topic, man. But what do you think about them winning that bubble, man? Are you putting an asterisk by that, or are you comfortable with the championship?
No, championship, it is what it is. These guys are professionals, and they're paid to do a job, and they did it. I don't see any difference, any drop off. Just like pro football with no fans, those guys are still working their butts off, and so I credit them. To me, it's a real championship. These are grown men, these are professionals doing their job, so it was legit to me, 100%.
It's 100% legit to me too, and I think Scottie Pippen gets out there and he says it's not real basketball, but it's equal. You know what I mean? It's one thing if you say something isn't real for one person, but it is for the other person. Hey, they're all in the bubble, right? I think it probably helped, in my opinion, it helped Miami more than anyone else because Tyler Hero is 20 years old and he's playing like a veteran because he doesn't have any crowd to distract him or anything going on there. He could just sit there and focus. So it's fair for everybody. I think if anything, it cheats the home court advantage people because they don't have any fans to help them out. But
I don't really believe in that. I mean, there is something to home court advantage, but being a former pro, I just know that when the action starts, your brain goes on mute. I don't remember hearing, oh man, the crowd's really loud. If nothing else, I'm trying to hear a snap count or a signal, but that never was a factor. It was only a factor until after the play or after you got beat or whatever. It was never during. So I don't really think that. I mean, a true pro, you've gone through so much stuff in college to get to that point. You're not thinking about a crowd. You love it because it helped after the moment. But in the moment, you're so focused on what you're doing. That's the last thing you hear.
What about the comfort level of not traveling? Like, you know what I mean? Do you think that adds into it? I know football doesn't really have that sort of tournament thing where you're playing 1 day, 2 days, whatever, and just less travel being at home. You don't think that helps at all?
It's funny. In a broadcast this weekend, Ellen Pinkett shared something that I felt. I liked traveling. I liked traveling because I felt like I was the enemy coming into someone else's land, trying to take their territory. So there was never any discomfort. I mean, there were a couple of road trips here and there where planes are delayed and you got to go through, jump over the river and through the woods. But for the most part, like being a pro is such a great experience that you cherish and you find ways to treasure every little moment, things that people might be, like people hated practice. I loved practice. So I can't really say that, all I can do is.
So you were weird. So you doesn't count because you were weird.
No, I wasn't weird. A lot of guys do, but they like to whine. You know what I mean? They want to, oh, my life is so hard. Look, get up and go to some mediocre job every day. That's hard.
You get one of those people who's gets up and goes to jobs that some are and some aren't mediocre every day and never had an opportunity to play football for money. I can agree with that. There's definitely something that you should be appreciative for. So anyway, without further ado, there was a guest on today. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
No, there was never a day where I didn't appreciate the opportunity to go put on some shorts and play a sport. I mean, I never lost focus to that.
True that. On that note, man, we have another special guest on today, keeping with the theme. This man was a 6-year pro, came out of Colorado State, played with the Bengals as his sole team. Linebacker Adrian Ross. We still got to get our clap button back. I feel like
Big A, what's up, baby?
What up, fellas?
We used to have a clap button, man. I feel bad. I always only remember at the time I should clap because I feel like we let you into an empty room. So it's kind of like NBA basketball. We have like virtual fans. Normally we have a studio audience out here that would clap for you, but we're going virtual today. So what's going on, Adrian?
Oh man, just making it happen in motion, slow motion.
Okay, so I got to jump in now. First of all, his government name is Adrian Ross, but we affectionately knew him as the Mad Backer. The Mad Backer, because A was intense, and I was known to be an intense player, but A was a very intense player. And so I want to know, who gave you the moniker the Mad Backer, A?
Oh, man, that was a collective of the linebacker room. It was Steve Foley, Takeo Spikes, and Brian Simmons. Those are the boys that kind of was like, I guess you would know better than me, but when I get mad, they like, Ross is mad. Ross is talking in his high pitched voice, and going off and yelling.
Yeah, that was that was a great linebacker room. A lot of good personalities. You guys played for Coach Mark Duffner, who really loved you guys and treated you guys like they were his sons. And I just want to know what it was like coming from Colorado. And you're going to get to tell your story, but I've always wanted to ask you this because I did not know until I started reading that you were an undrafted free agent. You were right in the room with everybody else. You played a substantial amount of time. You contributed. You were a special teams monster. What was it like coming out of Colorado, being an undrafted free agent?
Man, it was tough. I guess it's kind of twofold because I actually went to college as a walk-on as well. So
no kidding.
Yeah. So I got an academic scholarship to Colorado State. I want to be a veterinarian. Okay. And I grew up looking at you guys, looking at Notre Dame because Elk Grove High School, we were blue and gold. Mm-hmm. So I used to look at Demetrius Dubose, rest in peace, and Rocket and all that stuff. So Elk Grove, we thought we were Notre Dame, and I think James Kidd got a chance. He was our running back was being recruited there, and he ended up going to Colorado. But coming in to college, I already did it, and then I saw what happened to me coming out of high school was listening and having a whole bunch of coaches that were on. My high school coaches were trying to be Lou Holtz and try to just talk about all this team, which is cool at that level and it's cool as a collective. But he wasn't getting anyone to any colleges, right? And so because of my parents,
state though, or something like that, right?
There you go. Yep. And at that time, California didn't have state, so we won our section. Mm-hmm. And because the program was winning, it was we're winning, and you guys go to JC,
right?
And my parents were like, "Fool, like you got the 3.83, like we're not going to JC,
right?"
Right. So thank God for that. And then Colorado State actually had a vet school as well. So when they came and saw me on film, they was like, what's up with this dude? Why isn't he going nowhere? And so that's how I felt at Colorado State. But
now, back then, did they have preferred walk-ons like they do today, or how did that go? Did they talk to you before, or did you go to vet school? They showed up and we got this great athlete that just shows up out the blue.
No, they actually talked to me. So that's what I would have really been, was a preferred walk-on. That's what it really was. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that kind of got the academic money and made it happen.
Right.
Gotcha. And it was actually, so my dad was like, man, it's actually cheaper for you to leave here and go to Colorado than it is for you to go down the street to UC Davis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was another vet school. And then I could play D1 ball. So when I got there, I was like, hold the hell up. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of dudes from my school that could be here playing.
Right.
So I got to see the real of it. And I knew from being a Ross, I was going to grow later. They were looking at all the skinny. I was like, hell, like now I'm eating breakfast.
Right.
Back then I wasn't eating no breakfast. Mm-hmm. It was all gas. I was just going off of my body. That's why I wasn't gaining no weight. But to answer your question, it was easier at the pro level going in because I did it in college.
Okay.
So I already knew what was up.
Now, let me ask this question about being a walk-on. At what point did they come to you, what year, and say, hey, Adrian, we think you've performed well enough to be a scholarship athlete? And then what was that moment like for you?
That's funny, because I actually, me, I've gone into this in many levels, but it's funny because I actually flipped it. Year 2, I ended up redshirting. I was traveling at first, and then it was about game 5, I think after we played BYU, they still were traveling me like it was just supposed to be a cool thing, right? Like, oh, we got the freshman and he's traveling, and I'm like, I'm coming back home Saturday night and I'm hearing about all the parties that all the other freshmen went to, and I'm sitting there in the hotel, every Friday night, and then shooting up and not playing in the game.
Right.
So I actually knew I wanted to be on scholarship. It starts being talked about year 1. I get scout team defensive player of the year given out by Urban Meyer. He was our wide receiver coach back then. And so then the next year, I'm telling them and making it be a thing. Like, hey, I'm going to be on scholarship, right? And, oh, yeah, you'll probably. And they keep trying to, act like here's the cheese. Okay, come back and weigh this much, and come back and bench this much.
Right.
So I actually got a scholarship the next year. Okay. Then they continued to talk to me like that, though. It was like they tried to keep me on the walk-on status, but I'm playing. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, so I said, this is before I knew I was the Matt Backer. So I had to pull a Matt Backer episode. And I was like, hey, if y'all don't have me on scholarship like everybody else, I'm transferring to Colorado. So I flipped it on him, OG, and was like, hey, if from the rest of this time, I'm not on the rest of the stuff that everybody else is on, because out here in practice, y'all keep wanting to talk to me as if I'm somebody different.
Right.
So I kind of demanded and made them so I could dead all that walk-on scholarship stuff. And so after year 2, that was a wrap.
It's just funny because people who have no idea about sports or organized sports or collegiate sports, they think that everything is slotted in like some fairy tale way, and it's not. Like with me, I came out as the USA Today Defensive Player of the Year, and I had to fight for 5 years to stay on the field. And so just, in talking to college kids, because my son's kind of going through it now, how much of your own, like one thing I've always liked about you, is you're your own biggest fan. All right. And I try to tell my son, in order to be successful, you have to be your own biggest fan. What gave you the wherewithal to go in and talk to these coaches, basically like, look, man, either you're going to do this or do that. Like, a lot of people don't appreciate how much of that is important, how much inner, confidence that you have. And that's one of the things you've always been. What taught you to do that in life?
I think I give that credit to my dad. My dad being that administrator, being that principal. I lived in a household where he's coming home, and he's a former coach. My dad was OG, played back in the day with the Niners and the Broncos.
Okay.
Back when it didn't matter. I always tell him, but I see the little articles. Like,
where'd your dad go to school?
It was the most relevant thing at the time, so it always mattered.
San Jose State.
Okay.
So out of San Jose State, right before Tommy Smith and Carlos and them. So he was there during all that. And so I think, because of my dad, because I'm, boom, I'm coming home calling 1-800-COLLECT, back then, right? This is back before cell phones.
Or the phone cards.
Yeah. And so him being a coach, he kind of knew the games that they play. So I think because I had that, that kept me there. Right. And because I knew if it probably wouldn't have been him, I'd have been out. Because, it's like, I'm not dealing with y'all. And he's like, hey, they just messing with you and whatnot. And I'm like, hey, well, I ain't paying. But since I'm not paying, I got to listen to what Pops is saying. But if it would have been up to me, I would have been out. But I was able to do it because of my dad, and the knowledge that he was giving me.
Okay. And it's funny because you mentioned the California JUCO system. And so I'm a big fan of Last Chance U. And so they had a JUCO. I forgot which school it was, but one of my ex-teammates, Willie Blackwell, high school coach, was the coach of that. How many kids do you know get caught up in that California JUCO system? Because there's over 80 JUCO programs, and there's no way that people can really, really tap into them to successfully recruit them. Because I coached in Yuma, Arizona, where there was only like 6 programs, and I coached in the same conference as East Mississippi, in Mississippi, where there was like 12 programs. But how many great football players get balled up in that JUCO system, in your opinion, since you were almost, relegated to become in oblivion because of it?
Oh yeah, that's a great question there. There's a ton. Like you said, the California system is great JUCO. Like my dad was JUCO, my brother was JUCO, and then he went to Hampton. So there's some great football. I think was O.J. Simpson. I mean, I hear all those stories. Like my dad was growing up during that time. First? San Fran. Yeah, I think he was at like San Francisco City because he's from the Bay. And so my dad I used to grow up hearing those stories, and I was like, whatever. Then I coached at Grant High School in Sacramento for a year, and I saw all those guys, and I saw the JCs coming around, and I saw how these guys looked at it, and someone gave me the numbers on just what you said. He's like, the likelihood of them getting out of there is not great at all, and then just the guidance that the lack of guidance that they actually have. has been tough for those guys to actually get out. But there's a lot that are going through there and getting washed up early because they can't make it out of there.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because, like I said, I coached at 2 junior colleges. Don't you feel like if you go through a JUCO, you either have to be self-motivated or have a strong foundation, like you said, Joel, man? Because one thing that a buddy of mine pointed out, he played JUCO basketball. It's like one thing about a junior college is everybody's ready to leave. And we're talking about coaches, we're talking about students, we're talking about everybody but the groundskeeper is ready to get the hell out of JUCO. And that's what kind of makes it tough. Don't you think that a lot of JUCOs fall short in motivating kids? There are good ones, don't get me wrong, but don't you find that paradox happens with a lot of California athletes?
Oh, definitely. Even now, so in Cali, all the way down to high school, like now it seems like these programs want pros already. It's like everybody's supposed to come to them developed already.
Right.
But it's just trickling on down to to like the Little League, the Pop Warner level, to where they're not being taught the fundamentals of the game that we were taught. It's now everybody's trying to win, and they're trying to win a championship rather than teaching the fundamentals. And to me, it's showing up on the field. They don't actually know how to tackle or anything.
It's funny you say that because I think, my son's coming out of the youth ball now, whatever. He's a few years behind OG's ball. I feel like what they had, what we didn't have before. All we had was TV. I heard Walter Payton ran up a hill, so that's what I did. That was the gist of my training. If I heard somebody else did something crazy, I would try to emulate that. But nowadays, there's trainers at the kindergarten level, and these guys are going here. So it is win at all costs more than it was before. Are making super teams now and traveling the country to try to say I'm the national championship and the number 1 8U team in the country. People doing all that stuff. But there are a lot of like quarterback trainers and gurus and all that kind of stuff that are available to these kids that we never even dreamed about having in our day. And our parents definitely were. My dad would have been like, "What? Put some money towards what? Teach you how to play? I'm going to pay someone to teach you how to play? I don't understand how that works." Nowadays, we're like, I got to get with this trainer. I'm falling behind. So it's kind of crazy. It is changing though. But the seriousness, as you mentioned, is coming down level to level to level. And now it's in 8th grade. If you don't throw, if you have a bad throwing motion, people start shelving you, thinking that you're not worth it anymore.
Now, Big A, I want to get your opinion on that too, because that's a debate that Reg and I have a lot. Not so much us debating and disagreeing, but what do you think about the monetization of football? What do you think about everybody's a trainer, everybody's this and everybody's that? I like to ask ex-pros how they feel about it, and do you think that would have made a difference? It might have made a difference for me because I think we have a lot more solid coaches out there now. Instead of those old grizzly white guys who, played back in their day and taught you to use the forearm shiver to take on a,
I had a forearm shiver, coach.
What is your opinion on that?
It's funny that you said that because it's like there actually are a lot of great quality coaches and there are those that need it. I think the problem is I call it the 99% versus the 1%. And it's like you have the 99% that didn't play the game, that don't necessarily know about it, that are just getting trainer Joe Blow. And just because of the fact that the child is training and doing this extra stuff, they think it's doing better when it's actually doing a lot of detriment to these youngsters, right? Because a lot of the time what I'm seeing from them is they're not getting rest. It's like now, like we had seasons back in the day. It was like, okay, this season, that season's over. We go to this season and then this season. Now it's like, I'm playing this all year long. And they always want to play games, So now for me, there's the 7-on-7 aspect of football now.
How do you feel about 7-on-7?
7-on-7 to me, I'm a defensive guy.
Go ahead and say it, man.
I don't like it, but I guess I can't talk about it per se because I feel that it was made for the quarterbacks to be better because the quarterbacks can't really go out there and train. They always need some wide receivers to throw to, right? And I guess, cool, you bring the DBs over, the linebackers, but there's no hitting going on. So
well, not only that, but you take away the most crucial element in football, and that's sense of urgency. There's no duress. There's no duress. I mean, if I'm a quarterback and I know I'm not going to get laid on my back, there's no sense of urgency. Thus, it doesn't put pressure than DBs, and it does force the DBs and wide receivers to run their routes better or whatever. But I just feel like it's unrealistic. Now, is it better than doing nothing? Yes. but also playing in the yard was also pretty good too. And that's why I think there's too much emphasis put on it. But that's just my personal opinion. Again, I'm a defensive guy.
Yeah, it's better than nothing for sure. But I think too much of it is a bad thing because, DBs are mugging guys out there, right? And they're doing something. Mm-hmm. Quarterbacks, like you said, sense of urgency, they get 4 seconds. It's 3 seconds is what we thought. 1, 2, 3, boom. They're giving them 4 seconds, and then they get to throw the ball. The DBs, they know it's pass every time. There's no run aspect of it. There's no line in front of you to see over. I watched some 7-on-7 yesterday, and these guys weren't even taking a drop. They would snap the ball, and they would take one step back and go. I'm like, either take it in shotgun or take a drop. You're never going to snap. There's too many bad habits that they allow people to do. So I think probably the receiver gets the best out of the deal because in the game, nobody's going to get to mug them like that. In the game, nobody's going to know it's pass every time like that. So that's about it. But you're right.
Now, Big A. Now, one of the things I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
One of the things I like about you is you're never afraid to speak your mind. And I know over the years, and through our text feeds, you're a big proponent of athletes' rights. Since we're talking about JUCO kids, but of course, a hot button topic. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. I feel like if the coronavirus pandemic hadn't hit, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Hypocrites, would have been forced to deal with athlete compensation. And I know you have strong feelings about that one way or another. What is I think if this season hadn't had so many other pitfalls to worry about, like actually playing games, I think we would have gotten to addressing that seriously. What's your opinion on athletes and their rights and their likenesses and being compensated in collegiate football?
Yeah. So my stance is that any entity performing on television, when a third party is making money, they should be compensated for. Right. And so I think that what's been going on is they've done a good job of tying it to school, student athlete, and they keep bringing that student athlete hyphen up, and it's like, no, when we've gone and we're sitting in class, that time is being taken up for me to be a student. Stops on Saturday, Friday night at the stadium, there's no class going on. Like, I'm not being taught by anybody. You're not giving me a school credit for it. But yet there's all this money that's being made off of my performance. Right. So to the athlete, us wearing the same uniform, we're still doing the same performance. Our performance in college wasn't any different than it was in the pros.
Right.
Same equipment, same everything. Why? Because you label me a student athlete over here, do you not get to compensate me? When the person that I attend the school with works at Subway, but they're getting a check from Subway.
Right. Now I'm sorry. I'm going to play devil's advocate. So their argument is that, well, we're compensating you with an athletic scholarship. But obviously, those numbers exceed what they're giving you in scholarship compensation. Those numbers are exceeded by the amount of revenue that is generated from, it used to be in stadium attendance and television licensing rights. What do you say to those proponents who are saying you're being compensated on scholarship?
Perfect. And that's been addressed, is because not every school is on television. So for me, that's why I broke it down to those that are performing on television.
Okay.
That's making money, because not all schools are on television. So hey, if you just have a home game and the visiting games and all that, we got a great agreement. But when you sold this to Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever network, and you guys are getting compensated for my 3-hour performance out here, I need compensation. The Little League World Series, they should be compensated. Right. Their ratings are higher than the Kardashians. And the how do they get to justify that the Little League World Series is getting nothing, but the Kardashians are getting $1 million an episode when they have lower ratings than the Little League World Series?
Yeah, they're taking advantage of the fact that people are so happy to just be on TV at that age, and you're right, they're agreeing that. Now, what would you say to those who say that would create well, hold on, let me take a step back. How would you propose the payments come from the schools, or the way that they're proposed now, or would it be coming from third parties and like image and likeness, like endorsement kind of deals? Which one of those formats were you thinking is more fair?
It should come from the third party, right? So,
okay,
because what I figured out is football, basketball, those are the two main money-making college sports. Mm-hmm. when you're performing, you're an entertainer. This is entertainment, right?
Right.
Football, NFL football is the number one entertainment there is, bar none, period, right? But the tools and the artists coming up before they're pros are deemed students.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you turn a channel on from Thursday to Saturday, there's all these games on.
It's not even that anymore.
Students, right?
With all these makeups of games, we have Tuesday night football now.
Tuesday night, probably every day of the week now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not getting school credit for it. You're not getting the certification to be able to coach. You're not getting it to be a trainer. You're not getting anything out of it. But these are all these institutions of higher learning. But I can go sit in the class for 50 minutes and get 3 credits.
Right.
But you're not getting credit for all the running around, all the lifting, all the playing, or anything that you're doing. Then when you get done, you have to come and ask the coach for a job.
Or the detriment that you're doing to your body physically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything has a price. Okay, so now
I don't think anybody. OG, that's a great point. I don't think anybody ever factors that into it. What are you doing to your body in the long run? What are you actually the long-term cost that you have of the sport? I didn't have a long career, whatever, but I got some long-term detriments that I had to deal with. And that education is like, you don't know. You're going as this 18-year-old, you don't know any better. You're like, hey, I'll take it. Parents are like, I don't have money for college for this person. Hey, let's go do it. It sounds great. And we get to watch them on TV. But you're right. It's kind of bamboozled. One thing you mentioned that kind of put an idea in my head was, the student athlete. Well, if this is all about student athletics and this is all school related, why do we have professional coaches? Why don't we do it like high school where the shop teacher is doing it? How come we don't have some professors? You coach, but you have to also teach a science lab or something like that to make it together. But that's completely done like a professional sports team. And then the athletes are going to be separate. But anyway, I like the ideas you're bringing up.
Well, one of the things that my counterpoint to that is, well, not my counter, I agree with Reggie, but when you go to college as a student, you're going there to earn money, okay, to gain a profession in which you can take care of yourself. Now, a normal student, if they say want to go work at an internship, the college is like, hey, strong J, way to do your thing. Whereas if you're an athlete, now you're held to a set of standards that's not equal to the other 98% of the student body that's there. You have to adhere to some rules to keep amateur status. So then their argument is, well, some schools that are obviously on TV, like you said, will have a recruiting advantage. Well, then my thing is, just like in life, you have to be good enough to get to that school where they're paying. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything unfair of that. And then kids will also go to the other schools because, hey, they're providing an education. So I wish I was educated or experienced enough to have a job that paid me 500 racks a year. But with my education, my experience, and the fact that I was a pro football player, I could probably only qualify a job to make me $100,000 to $150,000. So that's where I kind of say, wait a minute, it's unequal. If you're good enough to get to an ND or a USC and they're paying, you deserve it. If you didn't put in the wrench time, well, then go to the other school, take the scholarship, and go from there. Reg, look like you had a point.
To your point, it's already not equal. To your point, It's already not equal. You can't tell me that USC and Toledo have the same offers. It's a coin flip between it. It's already not equal. So let's not act like this is going to make it any less equal. And to be honest with you, I think it'll bring some schools, others, it becomes more variety in the offering, right? So let's take Toledo and USC as 2 examples. Maybe Toledo doesn't have anything else going on in town, and they have really good corporations that will be willing to pay a lot to try to bring people to their school. Maybe for once you can be the man at Toledo, and you can get the law firm or the Chevy dealership. That's the sponsorship they're holding over your head here. Or you can go to USC and you're going to be like the 25th man on the team, so you get Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? So I think that if anything, it's an equalizer.
Yeah, definitely. And then another point to what you guys have said prior is when they say the education. That's another thing that I'm trying to clarify now is just what OG said is like, he said, you're going there to make money. People are going there to get a career. Well, the detriment of the system right now for the athlete, the football player, basketball player, you're not able to take classes to be able to get to that career that you're going to school for. Because your practice is coming into play. And I call this the gray area. So I'm working on writing a book now calling it the gray area, because there's a big gray area in all these sports but there's these buzzwords that we get to hear all the time, and we hear, I got my education paid for. It's like, well, is this like I'm telling like the NFLPA now? They always want to say, hey, after you guys are done, we're going to teach you how to write a resume. And I'm like, what the hell is the guy going to put on the resume?
Football.
I mean, shit, like you just had him work. I mean, you didn't let him work in college. They play for the league 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then now you're going to show them how to write a resume?
Yeah.
What are they putting
What
on?
time? What time did I have to fill this resume?
There you go.
That's a great point. You know what? I'm sorry. Hey, go ahead.
No, good.
So I got you. I got the Mad back on the line for a reason. That's because Big A is not afraid to speak his mind. And there's something that's kind of burning my craw, and I understand it, but I have zero tolerance when it comes to this. I want to get your opinion on the social justice movement by pro sports now. And the reason why I have a problem with it is because I try to ask myself the hard questions. So I think back when we were playing for the Bengals, would I have taken a knee? I mean, really, would I have taken a knee to protest social justice? Injustice. I'm sorry. You guys know me, and I'm opinionated, and obviously I'm proud to be black, and so on and so forth. But would I have taken a knee? So now, and I don't watch the NBA too much anymore. I do watch it, the playoff games and all that. But now I see it across the court, and now the NFL is apologizing for not backing up the players, and then President Trump vilified the NFL. And so on and so forth. What do you think about it now that they want to run every other ESPN commercials about social justice? Now, I'm glad that brothers in the NBA started putting messages, but don't you feel it's a little hypocrisy now? Whereas before they vilified these people who were doing it. What's your take on that?
That's exactly how I saw it. I was like, you didn't let this happen before. I mean, going back to the whole dancing. I mean, just with us, like, oh, it's a penalty. Like you celebrated too much, and then they turned around and did that. Okay,
but you know why? Hey, I mean, you peeped why though? Those NFL ratings started going down. So before, which was they put you on a cross for and penalize you for. Now they allow players to have organized routines, which means they got to start working that out on Wednesday.
Right.
And so I'm just saying it's hypocrisy. And don't you feel that the NFL, the NBA, and all these pro sports, although I'm glad you're on board now, how many other people had to die before you said, you know what? Maybe those guys really did have a point. What's your opinion on pro sports? And my thing is, and I know I'm, some always left of center. My thing is shut the hell up about it. Because when I tried to do it, you vilified me. You fined me. You threatened my job. You blackballed me. But now you want to do it now? It's hypocrisy.
And you're making money off of it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's like, hey, y'all, like that's how I feel. It's like now we can make money off of this.
Or
like,
even
so now
more scared to lose money. OG and I have this conversation often. I kind of feel like you got to give people a chance to come around because if they still didn't allow it, we'd be even more upset, right? So they come around. Now, should they get like a Nobel Peace Prize for it? No. Right.
Yeah, but we're talking about lives here. We're not talking about let them eat at the lunch counter. We're talking about let you not get your black butt beat by the cops. I mean, there's two different things. And some things you got to have zero tolerance. And I always say this because I try to look at things and keep it a buck. If somebody touched Zachary Gibson, you've got a problem with me. Okay. And I'm saying it on TV or on air on the internet. I'm not going to take the lawsuit. I'm not going to sing some songs. I'm not going to rally. And I think it's because, and that's why, it's funny. I used to hear people debate, who is the more charitable person, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? And I like to get your opinion on this. Now, Mike J gave money and he didn't parade around and, he didn't tell people what he did. And I'm not criticizing Mike, but I appreciate LeBron James because LeBron has the courage that even in his highest moments, he still represents because when LeBron steps out of the stadium, he's what? He's a black man. Okay. And so he doesn't just do it for the cameras. And I don't appreciate the way ESPN, the NFL, the NBA, all of a sudden wants to now throw it in your face. It should be a zero tolerance thing. These are people's lives. And nobody ever cares until their own is affected. So I wanted to know, I can't be alone in that thought. I'm just curious what you think. Am I radical? Am I radical?
No, I'm right there with you. No, I'm right there with you. And then a whole nother part of it is, to me, they're not ever looking at the player. Just how you said, you had one of your own telling you about it and you vilified them, blackballed them, so on and so forth. Now you let it all go and it's all happy-go-lucky, but you're not really ever listening to the player, right? Like right now, the players have it as if they're listening to them. I'm like, they ain't listening to you. They just now are letting this happen, and they're saying, hey, you guys go ahead and carry it on out now because we got this sponsor over here, and we're allowing this and we're allowing that. Because back to what we just spoke on, my point is, wait a second. When I was a student athlete, I couldn't get paid. I couldn't do nothing. You told me to shut up and dribble, shut up and do whatever. Now, all of a sudden, because I'm in the league, now I get to tell everybody else what the hell to do. I'm like missing with that. They're not going from you being in college and you can't say S, and then now you guys are the one that's gonna go ahead and tell everybody how stuff is. And that's the main problem, especially with the National Football League, is you have a bunch of guys that because they play and they're popular, the league is acting like they're listening to them. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, you should have, if they're listening to you now because now you left this college and now you're in the league, well, why don't you have a voice when you're in college?
Right. And here's what scares me about that. Because it is now the flavor of the month, as flavors come, flavors go. So when this dies out of the media, are they going to take Black Lives Matter off the court and put that FedEx sponsor on there? That's what worries me. And that's why I say don't even address it. You know what? Say, hey, we apologize.
They already announced they're not going to have it on the court next year, by the way.
And that's the scary part about it. And that's why I find it to be hypocrisy. And I think, it takes more LeBron James athletes to lay down the law and say, you know what? You touch mine, I'm going to touch yours. Period. Because we're talking about lives here. We're not talking about
doing.
What did you say?
Sorry. I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
Well, basically, and I didn't catch it because I from what I understand, and I could be wrong, you guys have to correct me because I don't stay on the sports celebrations like that. But didn't he do something in the celebration that was kind of like indicative of, you know what, he's at his highest moment, but he's still remembering this cause? I saw something about ESPN on it. ESPN. I was curious if that happened.
When he got the MVP last night in his speech, he did talk about the social justice issues and kept going. And what I like about it, because I know there's a lot of people I've had conversation with that are saying, I just feel like, they feel inconvenienced. And what I love is LeBron saying to the country and to the public, and I got to give him credit for the whole NBA doing it because the league goes as LeBron goes. And he's saying, listen, if you can't listen about social justice, if this is too annoying for you, then I don't want you watching the game. I don't want to entertain you. When they thought about coming back for basketball, LeBron's like, I don't know if we should come back and take away from this social justice that we're doing right now. But then they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to plaster it everywhere that we can put it. And you're going to have to see it. And if you can't stand to read Black Lives Matter, if you can't stand to read Say Her Name, if you can't read, stand to see Vote or any of the different things that they have on the back of their jerseys, then I don't want you to be entertained by us. I love that. I love it. Good. Don't watch basketball. Because to be honest with you, I had a great time watching it. And I think a lot of other people did too. And I talked to some people who said that they're not going to watch it because they don't like the whole politics. And I'm so happy to hear them say that, because if you're not willing to hear the politics, I hate that you get a chance to be entertained. Go watch nothing. Go do the nothing. You know what I mean? Go do nothing. Good. I hope it gets on your nerves, and I hope you don't watch it. I hope it bugs you to death and whatever, because that pleases me. You know what I mean? That pleases everybody else. So I love what the NBA did. I'm not going to say I forgive them, bygones be bygones, but I feel like they eventually did the right thing, right? I think the NBA has been better than the other sports have been in general when it comes to this. I don't think, I can't breathe on their shoes or whatever. And NFL would have fined you guys $1 billion for that, right? But I thought that the NBA's always been a little bit better. I like the commissioner of the NBA. I don't know. I think he gets a little bit more than everybody else, but you guys might have a different opinion on that.
No, yeah, basketball definitely is the leading in, like in terms of being more modern. Like they don't have.
It's a player-led organization. I mean,
and they have some younger, more modern owners. Like my boy Mark Cuban's one, and he's definitely come out to a lot of my events. And
hold on, man, because you just stunning on your boy now. And I remember being invited to a party in the Palms Hotel with the Maloofs, and they're your boys, and Mark Cuban. Tell us your affiliation. I don't mean to get off the subject, but I need to get my blood pressure back down because I get fired up. And that's just a funny story. How is it that you you had these connects with these people? I mean, you're obviously charismatic, intelligent,
You don't have to tell all your secrets on here, man. You don't have to tell all your secrets.
What'd you say?
You don't have to tell all your trade secrets on here, man.
No, I'm just saying, like, A is connected to some folks now. What made you get into that? Because I want to segue that into your agency. Your agent experience too.
G, just from playing in Cincinnati, it was kind of one of those. I got to the NFL, and you know how it is when you rolled up into Cincinnati, and I was like, spinny field, and I was like, this is what the NFL is, and it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be when I got there.
Right.
And then I go back home to Sacramento, and that was the Kings. I was at the height of the Sacramento Kings Lakers. Okay. C. Webb and all them. So I go back home and I get to go to those games, and I liked what the Maloofs were doing. I was like, this is a show. Like this is what they're giving the crowd. And so I was able to see the Maloofs by going to WNBA games when it wasn't as packed, and just having conversations with them and seeing how. That's when I started understanding marketing. I started seeing in the building. I'm like, they're the owner of the Kings, and I'm like, what's the Palms? What is the Palms up like? I'm in Sacramento. I'm like, I don't see where are the Palms at? Mm-hmm. And they're like, that's a hotel in Vegas that the Maloofs own. Oh, so now I started going there, and then I was just like, y'all had everybody staying here, but nobody partying here. And I was like, let your boy get the real world suite, and I'll have my guys come out. And they were like,
you flipped it as the win-win. I love it.
There you go. So they was like, hey, go ahead and get Adrian this. And we started talking, and that's how I got on. I saw Cuban at I think I saw him at the All-Star game in LA. And you know how me and Corey Dillon used to be playing on the video game. Right. So I'm big Dirk Nowitzki fan. So I was whooping his ass with the Mavericks and Steve Nash back in the day. And then Cuban comes into the Four Seasons, and they was like, hey, there's your boy Mark Cuban over there. I bet you won't say nothing to him. And you know me, I'm like, I go over and interrupt him. He's talking to Donnie Nelson Jr. and he's like, hey, I'll talk to you in a second. I'm talking. Right. I was like, all right. And he came over to the table after, and he says, yeah, and I invited him out to my game. He said, hey, send me an email, give me the date, and I'll fly in. Okay. And he fly his jet on in, and he come in, and he was, he's a class act. Wasn't trying to ask for security. This was in Sacramento.
Oh, okay, Sacramento. Okay.
Yeah, so he flew in. I'm sorry, like 3 of my games.
What game?
I had a foundation, the Matt Backer Foundation.
Okay.
And I used to have a fundraiser in the summertime, so I had the Matt Backer Celebrity Charity Basketball game.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about coming to play in the Bengals game or something. All right.
Oh yeah, yes, it was a charity basketball game in Sac.
just a little. Is Cuban as down to earth as he appears?
Yeah, like way more than you would think. Really? Because just like if I was to invite you guys in, my thing was what I'd want when I get invited places, right? So of course the players would put up in a nice spot. You got your little swag bags and all that. There's going to be some festivities. Right. I hit Mark. I'm like, you want some
festivities? I like the way you phrase it.
Right. Do you want security? Big A. I don't need any security. So he'd be at the event, play hoop, come to the after party. No security, sitting there talking to everybody, just like he was one of the guys. That was it.
He's always been real. I liked him. You see, he just got Delonte West off the street personally. Mm-hmm. I don't know if OG, if you know about that, he was the guy that played for the Cavs. Yeah, and he went and picked him up himself. Like he didn't send somebody to get him. He went and got him himself. There's just not a lot of real dudes like that who would do that. There's a lot of people who would be like, well, you never know what could happen. He's like, whatever. The guy needs help, and he did it. I don't know. He's always seemed like a good dude to me. Sometimes I try to pay less attention because I'm scared he's going to say something that makes me not like him. So,
it's funny that we're talking about the High Life because, first of all, I had never been to the Palms Hotel to that point, and so I'm like, God bless pro football, and God bless my friends because my friends go ahead and get it. So, being in that lifestyle, like one of the hardest, not the hardest, but the most difficult transitions I had is becoming a regular guy. And after we all get out of football, to some degree, we all become regular guys. But you decided to try to be an agent. Was there kind of just like you said, our resumes are football. So for us to just walk away from football, that's kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. Is that one of the reasons why you decided to become an agent or try to become an agent? And then talk to me about how Black agents are regarded or treated as opposed to, and you know, it's not a matter of race, but everything's a matter of race to me. You know,
Right.
the old white guy comes in trying to tell you, you know, what you should do to your career. Because I've talked to some agents and they feel like there's a discrimination among players. Like they don't trust black agents. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the older white guy seems like, well, you know, you guys have been in this. Give me your opinion on that, because coincidentally, Reggie, coming out of school was, am I right, Reg?
Yeah.
Working
Sports
with an agency. So give me both of your opinions on that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Reg.
Yeah, mine's more brief than yours, so I'll let mine go. Yeah, when I came out of school, a couple things. One, in the agent business, everyone charges the same rate. So I always thought that was kind of crazy, because you could go to this great agent or you could come to us. So I was a recruiter for an agent, right? I was supposed to go work with one guy, the OG signed with. He kind of gave me the Heisman, and I went and fell to another dude, and I was kind of doing the runners for him. And
okay, let me pause you though, Reg. The only reason why I signed with him is because you co-signed for him, and he had Jim Flanagan and a couple other players. So that's your own damn fault, right?
See, I got played. Hey, look, that was my first rule of negotiation: is get your stuff signed up first. So I was over there. He was dangling the carrot. He ended up getting Oliver and then Bobby Taylor and other guys like that. And then the carrot just kept going. I couldn't get to it. So at some point I had to realize I needed to start making money. So I had to go in a different direction. So sorry, OG. I appreciate you though for looking out for me back then.
Right.
However, as I worked through the agent game and I saw everybody charge the same, you know, when you first get in the game, you end up signing people that are like, you know, guys like yourself that came out, you were undrafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, all right, well, look, the big agents really don't want to talk to you right away. So you come with a guy like me, and I'm grinding for you, and I'm working hard so that you give me that little $2,000 or whatever little percentage of your check is if you get on there. And the first thing that a lot of guys do when they finally make the team, when they're unrestricted, is fire that agent, because the other agents say, I'll take you now. And sometimes they don't even pay the respect to call you. They might send you a fax or whatever and got rid of it. And I just didn't see a future in that league. And I was tired of calling people and, you know, having to act like they're, because to me, the guys who shouldn't be big time acted the most big time. So I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to get out of it. But
there it is. And so going back to that situation, why did OG sign where he signed?
Relationships, yeah.
With you.
Because of who?
Because of me.
Because of you, right?
Yeah.
So there it is right there. And that's the whole problem is, just like, I don't know if you guys watch Ballers.
Yeah.
Right? So as an agent, the first thing I always had to do was I always had to keep up with what is out there, what's been out there and what they're watching now, parents and player. Mm-hmm. So I'd always have to come with the Jerry Maguire reference first, right? I'd be like, hey, have you guys seen Jerry Maguire? Because these moms would be sitting there with this list. Okay, why do you want my son? And I'm like, I'm not even going to go through that right now. I'm like, I drove 8 hours from Sac to San Diego for your son to hire me. Not I want him. Your son wants me. Right. And I just started talking like that, you know. But that's the problem, is just like, I was just like you. I was working for a law firm at first. Didn't want to be the agent because I'm like, the agent is just doing the contract and that's all they're doing.
For the most
part. Yeah. Exactly. Right. For the most part. Right. And I was the guy who wanted to build the next Adrian, in the sense of, I did what I did because I knew I was in Sacramento and I knew I was a big fish in a small pond and I could make it. But it was the grassroots stuff that you only have that short window that the big agency's not going to deal with. They're only going to deal with the big national marketing because they're going to be off sign the next guy. And there's value in whatever level of player that you are, because you're still the high school player for that high school that you went to, no matter how big you are, right? You're still that college player. And most of the big agencies are letting that go. They just want the Coke. Oh, hey, you were big enough to be the Coke commercial. And so I saw a lot of guys that should have more than what they should have. And that's when I got into it. Like for instance, one of the main guys for me that my friends always tell me back is Colin Kaepernick. I'm probably the first one to talk to Colin Kaepernick because Reno is right there, Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And so Colorado State would play them, and I'm looking at the games, and I'm like, man, this quarterback is 6'6", and he can move with a cannon. And I went and met with him first, but I wasn't the agent. So I want to meet with him just to show and tell him and talk. Then I get to the end, and his parents are in charge of it. And this is what I say about the gray area of 90% of the players would always say, hey, right now I'm concentrating, right? The coach tells you, hey guys, concentrate on here. So they're always talking about concentrate on here and worry about that when you're done. Worry about that when you're done here with me, and then go ahead and worry about that pro stuff later.
Right. Yeah. Worry about yourself later.
Right. And so for me, what we spoke on earlier, to me, all plays a part, right? We can't keep telling these young men, stop telling the 1% guys, since only 1% of y'all are going to make it, we're going to just only worry about the 99%, and you guys can't worry about what you're going to go off and go do. Because, hey, you know what? Even though we brought you here and said that you were more special than the other ones because we're going to pay for you to come here, don't worry about working on that. Go to class and work on some shit that you don't know about right now and try to hone that in. But meanwhile, we have all these facilities right here that you can't do nothing with and you can't make no money on, only for us.
Right.
You know, and so I'd ask these parents and players, I say, who is the football player? What's the football player's name in Jerry Maguire? I'll ask you guys know. Do you guys know the football player's name in Jerry Maguire?
I know the actor's name, but I don't know the football player.
Oh, Treadwell. Or was it?
Rod Tidwell.
Rod Tidwell,
right? And most of the parents and players would say, I don't know, but it's Cuba Gooden Jr. And I'm like,
yeah, that's all I have for you.
And so I said, do you know more football players' names or more agents' names? And they say football players. And I said, exactly. So you see how backwards the movie is? The movie was named after the damn agent.
Right.
And even when you watch the movie, all the show me the money is the main part that gets talked about, but Jerry didn't show him the money. If he would have listened to Jerry, he would have signed less, right?
Right.
Remember, Jerry was like, if you don't sign this, you're going to get nothing.
And that movie was loosely based on the career of what agent?
Who was it based on?
It was based on a real agent.
Steinberg?
I think it was Steinberg.
I was thinking Steinberg. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Was that when he left IMG or whatever? Did he leave IMG?
Yeah, it was when he left IMG. And, you know, okay, so since we're talking about agents and college athletes, at what point do you think a college athlete should be allowed, especially if we're matriculating toward kids basically, because, you know, the catchphrase now is build your brand, bro, build your brand. If a kid is building his brand and represents your brand from your freshman year on through your senior year, at what point do you think kids should be allowed to have agents? And do you think it would convolute the entire amateur status of, well, I guess you're not amateurs for getting paid, but do you think that would destroy college football, or just like everything else, it will be a natural evolution as far as when you get an agent?
It'll be natural. And I feel that, and this is going to be my business and I'm going into, so I can't give out too much.
You always gave us the gray area, so I hope you're happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Free smoke. It's been free smoke the whole hour. Let's go.
Right. But okay, so what I know and how I'm set up now is there's nobody over me to tell me when I can have what I want to have, right? So that's number one. Who is this entity in college that's telling me, oh, that's why I didn't know why people aren't up in arms about NCAA now says that you can use your likeness. What the hell you mean now? Right? Like something is already wrong there when some entity that you've never heard, not never heard of, but have never met anybody working at. You know, you don't remember signing anything from there, but they're always going around telling you what you can and can't do. That's the problem, is we don't know how to sign up correctly, and I know how to sign up correctly now. So I don't need the NCAA to tell me anything. I know how to do that right now. That's not it's a new thing that they're trying to say it because they're trying to get you to still abide and sign up how they want you to sign up. That's
You're saying
the whole problem.
There's a way in which you can sign your scholarship to where you're not under the umbrella of the NCAA?
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Correct.
Man, why didn't you say that the first hour? I could have spent 2 hours hearing about this. Please.
Yeah.
Please tell us more.
Right now, there's actually a player that did it. And it's funny because it's actually, you guys will look it up and we'll talk about it later, but look up Muhammad Ali's grandson, I think it is. It's either his nephew or his grandson. He was at Cal. And look what he did at Cal.
The receiver?
Right? I think that's what he was. Yeah. And
what's his name? Robinson?
I think he's from Vegas. And then he went to but anyway.
Somebody had an entertainment attorney going into it.
And he was a model. Right? So you can have whatever you had prior to coming into college.
Right.
Right. And so when, again, my whole thing is we got to.
You're 100% right about that, because I had a friend who's a casting director in Arizona, and they were casting a casino commercial for basketball. For some reason, they were doing something. I forgot the name of the casino, but it's a prominent casino. And he was trying to get my son to come down to cast for the role. But in order to maintain his eligibility and amateur status, he's at Southern Illinois on a football scholarship, but he plans to play basketball. But there's a strange rule that if you go in and say you take drama classes in high school, or you're a theater major in college, then he could be in this commercial. He's an athlete and he's under scholarship. But so you're 100% right about that. But because he went into it, like you said, you can have what you had. That's 100% correct.
Is that the same way those guys can play pro baseball and then they come back and get on football scholarships later, or am I mixing things up?
Well, that's
like Chris Winkie and those kind of guys, and they play baseball for a while. They come to college like 27 years old and they play football.
No, the only restrictions are on the two melanated sports. The two most melanated sports.
Exactly. No. My point is, like, Chris Winkie played pro baseball, then he came and played football at Florida State or something like that, and he was already like 28 years old, and he finished his baseball career, and he came back and did that.
I'm sorry. It's funny that you mentioned Chris Winkie, because he was the offensive player of the year when I was the defensive player of the year. I think Chris paid his own way
to college. Okay.
Kind of what Big A, you know this better than I would. Who was the basketball player from UNLV?
Greg Anthony.
Greg Anthony, right. They kind of pulled the Greg Anthony.
Yep.
Plus if you're playing pro baseball, you can afford to pay whatever your Florida State tuition is.
But I figured it out where you could be on scholarship and do it and actually get paid on both. So that's going to be my business. Stay tuned for that.
That's going to be our next show. How to get over on the NCAA.
There it is. I want to end them. I want to go after their helmet because, first I'll tell you this part. I had to start talking about ballers. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I asked all the parents and the players, I said, what is the age? What is the Rock's job in Ballers?
Technically, he's a financial consultant. And when in its inception, he was.
See, but then he know that from being a player.
Right.
Yeah.
But for how they make it look like, most people say he's the agent, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
He's a gopher initially. They use his relationship.
He was the value, period. Any title that they want to give him, who he was and who it was, right? Exactly, OG. But they all think he was the agent.
Right.
Yeah, they just don't even think about it. They don't care about that.
So going back to the whole thing, the hardest part for me was having been the former player, right? So it holds all this value to the parent, but to the player, it's like they end up wanting to go do what you did without you. And then they feel, especially say someone like me, not having been a draft pick and all that, it's almost like, yeah, you played, but I'm going to kind of go on and be better. And I have a better agent than you have because this guy has Dion and he has OG and he has. And so I saw the value is not in the agent. The value is in who the agent has signed. Right. So again, there goes the player having all the value.
Okay, let me ask you this question because it's always the underlying current of everything. Do you think race plays a part of it?
I do. I do think it plays a part, but mostly plays a part in the fact that they see most of them that are coming to try to get them look the same.
Right.
And have the same rosters. They have a bunch of black guys that they have signed up.
Right.
Right.
Were you ever able to get a white athlete?
Yeah, I mean, not a
not a prominent,
not one that's stuck.
A top. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not one that's stuck. But
you know what's funny to me is
sometimes white dudes will give you a chance before a brother give you a chance. That's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
You know, and that was just because it was more home. That was more my hometown, so they I'm getting the value there.
One of the things in picking an agent that it was a very simple scenario that was proposed upon me is like, okay, do you want to go to a big firm? Because if you're on the same firm as a bunch of monsters, the Tom Brady's of the world, if you call and Tom calls, who are they going to call back first? Obviously, they're going to call back Tom because I'm not an earner like that. And I think that's one of the considerations that kids don't make. I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond. And I think that's just a shame because in the end of the day, you're picking, like you said, the value is in who they have signed, not what they can do for you. I mean, I don't know about you, but there weren't a whole, and I had a pretty good agent, looking back, hindsight. I mean, obviously I have some beefs with Dave Levine was his name, and I'm naming names. There weren't a lot of endorsement deals for me in Cincinnati. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so the quality of Dave became he was a conduit to my investments. He put me in a bunch of good rooms, things that are still taking care of me to this day. And so I thank him for that. But a lot of kids don't take what an agent is supposed to do. They see things like Ballers and they think it's all glass and, glitter and glamour and all that, when really he should just be a consultant to you making better decisions. It helps if he's had a law degree. He should be. And that's why I say it's unfortunate that people have that perspective, because a guy like you who's been through it, and let's face it, you came in through the back door of the NFL. Undrafted free agent is a hard pill to swallow. And then you came into Cincinnati, where there was also always constant change. So I would think a parent would respect you coming in from that perspective, as opposed to the guy that came through the front door in the first 5 rounds of the draft. But that wasn't the case, evidently.
Well, it kind of is both, right? Because the parent they're like, oh, wow, like you have all the value, Cap's parents, right? But then at the end, when they start weighing it down, I don't look like all the other guys. Mm-hmm. And then they throw the player out there. Well, he's the player. So it's like, you're the one that's there that's like, this one doesn't fit because he's not like all these other, yeah, you didn't make our final meeting. And that's mostly what I got is college is stiff arming you because they're in school still. And they're like, oh, we're waiting till the end of the year. Like Kaepernick's senior year. I don't know if you guys can think back to it, because they weren't ever really on the map, but they had a squad. Right. And if they wouldn't have went to Hawaii and lost, it would have been totally different, because Boise, we started here in Boise State, and he had lost to Boise every year. Right. But that was the year they came back and beat Boise. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember that.
That year they played Notre Dame the first game. I don't even know who won.
Yeah, they did play Notre Dame. We won.
Did we win?
We won, but Kaepernick gave it to us in the first.
Gave us the business. Yeah, I was at the game.
And so it was like here's the number one tough thing is it's the last stronghold that the parent is actually the parent, right? It's this unique, here's the gray area where it's like we're the parent, and the last thing the player knew was getting recruited. Mm-hmm. Who's gonna kiss my ass and who's gonna tell me I'm good and who really wants me? And it's not a want thing. It's I want to show you who I am and how the work I'm gonna get done for you. But they're only looking at it like it's a recruiting thing. Because I always ask them, I always do the Jerry Maguire Ballers thing. Then I would ask them, who have you hired before? Mr. 21-year-old? Nobody. But now all of a sudden, you guys are the guru and you guys are interviewing all these people and you think that you know what you're hiring for. So that's why I started asking. I'm like, so what do you want in an agent? I like literally, guys, I go in there and flip it. I'm like, so what are you looking for?
I don't even know what to look for.
And then I'd say, I know, because I was there. You know what I mean? Like, I know that you don't know because I didn't know when I was doing it. I'm kind of like, dang, like, what am I going off? I signed with Master P and them coming out. No Limit. I was a No Limit soldier.
No, you weren't.
Yes. Right?
Cue the music. Come on, baby.
You want VIP access to the party.
Come on, man.
And like, then that's 98. That was at the height. Like, that was No Limit, right?
Right. Did you give MC Hammer a chance?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe from the Bay, Hammer.
We were at the Cotton Bowl. MC Hammer was on our sideline. I'm like, this dude's got juice. Remember at the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, I remember that.
He had to come out. I don't know who he was trying to get.
That's hilarious. Hey, if I would have known that, I probably would have been messing with you for years.
How did he do? Did he do a good job?
Hey, no, but the funny thing about it though was P was all about business. Like I learned a lot from meeting with P, but you know how that goes. The problem of it was at that time, it wasn't Master P, it was everybody he had working for him.
Right.
Because they treated us like we were the artist. And so OG knows me. I'm speaking up. I'm like, hold on. Like I'm sitting at Colorado State and the secretary would be calling, hey, I have the Giants on the line for you. What? So so that's how I knew how to be an agent, because I was like, I already did this. Like the teams are calling me.
I guess.
Because the guy that was the agent wasn't coming to work until 3:00.
Right. Did you
New
see that
Orleans times.
documentary on BET about No Limit? And they started they started talking about how his firm not flopped, and everybody who was under representation under P said it wasn't P. Like being around P, Percy Miller was a great hustling experience, but it was the guys that he had working for his firm representing him that was the downfall.
Yeah,
He was into a lot of things too. So
if P would have been hands on, I mean, every time we went down there, like I thought that it would be like, oh, I'm about to party. I'm meeting with P. He sit down, he talk about business, and I was like, damn, like this dude,
kind of a buzzkill.
It was all business when it came to him, and he was talking on some real stuff.
Right.
You know, but it was all the guys that he had hired for them that was like, man, there ain't no limit to what we could do. Hey, man,
come on,
skip all that. And so I started kind of giving them quizzes. I'm like, so am I going to be a DN or a backer? You going to be a defensive end? Nope. Gotta find a new one. You know what I mean? Like that was a trick question.
Did you find yourself doing better with guys whose parents weren't involved or weren't involved? Which one do you think you sold better to, the parent or the athlete?
As I started seeing it, it was the ones without the parent because they were there. It was their last little huggy bear. Like, you're taking my son from me, and I need to know everything, and I need to know what you're doing and what, you know, versus us talking. And like, that's what I started telling them. I'm like, man, as soon as you sign, if you make the team, whatever, it ain't going to be no more parents. You're going to be the one that's saying, I have to pay me, so on and so forth. So, you know, I get that's for you guys to talk to them.
Another factor I would think they may have played into it, and I could see this happening, is an age thing. So, like, considering your age right now, how old you were when you were working as a sports agent, a lot of the parents are older than you, and so they're used to, when they're thinking about, like, if they're on top of things, they're talking about like financial advice. They're used to seeing some older stuffier dude, and they're thinking these NFL owners are older stuffier dudes, and then they got this young guy that's coming in here talking black or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to put that title on a lot of people, but they see you coming in, you're a little younger. They're thinking, I don't know. You know, these owners are real old. They want somebody who's going to speak that language. You think that played a factor at all or no?
Oh, definitely. And then, you know, I think the age kind of more so for me was I had those parents in town that saw me, that are still there, and now their sons were there. And it's almost like, oh, you know, like, yeah, we go to USC, and yeah, we go to Oregon, and like, yeah, like we already know about you, you know, like you did your stuff at Colorado State, but like, oh man, we got that handled. And it's like, no, I played defensive end, and your son plays defensive end, and he's not that good yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's at USC, but I have a perfect guy, back to the training, one of my old coaches, a perfect guy that he needs to go see, because you know, OG, that there's a difference in between being at USC and being around a whole bunch of other talented guys, and then you just being the size-wise, versus now you got to go make this team. What arsenal do you have? What skills and technique do you possess for you to make the team?
What makes you special?
And I couldn't take, but they think, oh, I'm gonna go sign with Tom Brady's guy, and that's getting you to the league. No. And then I sat there and watched the number of them. All right, and then, but what would usually happen with me? The player would take all the advice that I would say and go do it with another agent.
Gotcha.
I literally had an agent tell me that one time. He's like, hey man, like last year I had a guy. I never sent someone to go train here in Phoenix, and the player wanted to go there, and I sent him there. And I was like, who was the player? And he told me, and I'm like, yeah, like he went exactly and did the step by step what I said to do, but he went with them.
Right. Now, two questions. One is kind of trivial. Did you ever have a no limit tank?
Man,
no, please say you didn't. Please say you didn't. He didn't give you a tank.
I fired them before I got the tank. I was trying to wait. Boy, I had the leather jacket with the no limit tank on the back, and they was coming with the chains, and I had to make a move. So I didn't get my chain.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Big Ed, we could go all day, man, and I appreciate your time. You got any prognostication on the success of Joe Burrow? Anything? Being an next angle?
No.
You want to stay away from that one?
Yeah, I'll stay away from that one. I mean, I watched him a little bit in college, and I like what he did. But it's tough sledding for him right now with the line they have, and you know, you have a wide receiver out there that I know his time has been too long there, and he needs to go. That's that's a tough thing having someone supposed to be your number one weapon out there. And
Talk about Mr. Green.
Yeah, and he wants to be out of there.
Gotcha.
It's a tough spot. Well, Adrian, man, it's been great today, man. Love spending this time with you. Had a lot of knowledge to drop. I think we can have you back and talk about some of these other topics and fill another hour up that way too. So I appreciate you. And the friend of OG's is a friend of mine. So I look forward to hanging out with you one of these days soon.
Likewise, I appreciate it, man. You guys keep doing what you're doing. You guys got a great thing going.
Big A, appreciate it, man. Take care.
All right. Peace and love.
Peace.